Well, hey guys, welcome to the studio. Today we're going to get started on our first song. What's a good place to start? How about the beat? So we have something to follow. Let's get to it. So we've got big plans for our song, perhaps some guitar or vocals, maybe some keyboards, virtual instruments, all kinds of stuff at our disposal. And it's a good idea if these things happen kind of lined up in time. We have a few options to how we can do that. Now, you can always run plain old metronome in your software. We're here in Ableton, and I can see right up here, this is my metronome on off, and as soon as I start playing any kind of track, I hear this. And that's fine if you can follow that. But me personally, I have a different approach. We're going to shut off the metronome, and instead, we're going to use a drum track to play along with. Doesn't matter if this is going to end up in our final mix of the song. It's just something to follow, and it sounds a little bit better than the bleep bleep bleeps. I could definitely follow this. We have a few ways that we can do this. My personal favorite way to do it for absolutely free is MT Power Drummer 2. We'll download it for free and we'll follow the instructions how to get it on our computer. It'll ask questions like, are you on Windows? Are you on a Mac? That type of thing. It sounds really good. It's got built-in beats, so you don't have to program anything in a variety of styles. And it's fully featured in the free version. The only hiccup is they give you a little splash screen, and you'll have to skip that every time you open it until you make a donation. If you're new to downloading a plugin and getting it to work in your software, we will cover that in a separate video. But there are good tutorials out there already because it's a little bit different depending on what recording software you're using. So we're going to assume you know how to do it. I have dragged this plugin into a MIDI track and put it here. And when I open up the software, this is what I'm looking at. Let me get me out of the way, handsome as I am. For right now, we're only looking to make a basic beat. I prefer looking at the different styles over here. The second one down here, this is 8th closed hi-hat. In other words, a pretty standard style of beat. And if I click on one of these, I have a play button down at the bottom. I can audition this and listen to it. Okay, just turning it down. It's very basic. In general, the farther down the list you go, the more complicated they get. Let's listen to this third one. That should be fine. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this little groove here and I'm going to drag it down to Composer here. And I can see it populate with this blue rectangle. That means there's something there. And let me put a fill on it. And again, they get more complex as they go. Let me try a very basic fill. Oh, that one's kind of cool. And again, I'll drag this down into Composer and I'll put it right at the end of my beat and you'll see both things here. At this point, I can hit stop. Okay. And these rectangles are showing me, well, it looks like I've got some basic beat here, followed by a fill. Now, this is a different play button. When I was auditioning, I used the bottom play button here, but if I want to listen to what's in Composer, I can just hit play here. Main beat. Here comes the fill. And stop. Now, the more you mess with that and as you adjust your tempo and all kinds of stuff, you'll find a beat that probably is a good background for whatever you plan on recording. And remember, this doesn't have to be part of the final mix. You can always replace the groove. You can always replace the drum sounds because it's MIDI. It's very flexible. Well, we've got our beat. We've got our fill. let's get it into our recording software so we can move on. And I'm going to look down here in my composer where I can see the beat and the fill. And if I click anywhere in here and drag it over, in my case, I'm in Ableton, and I can just make it a clip here on the track that has the MT Power Drum Kit 2 on it. So here's the actual beats, and I click it here, it'll drag both of them up onto a clip. Now I've got a clip there. At this point, I can shut down the window for the Power Drummer just by hitting X in the top right corner. I won't need it again. I can always reopen it. Let's zoom in on this. This is the clip that I just put here, and if I hit the play button, I should hear all of that drum part plus the fill. We did it. Now, in a lot of brands of recording software, it won't look like that little clip that you saw in Ableton. What I could have done is I could have just dragged it right onto a normal looking track and pasted it in. At this point, you'll see it appear as 3 bars of normal plus the fill. That's my 4-bar part there. And if I wanted to go for the entirety of the song, I can just click on it and duplicate it. In Ableton, that's Control-D or Command-D on a Mac, and just start making copies. There's a bunch of it. So at this point, I've got about 4 or 5 minutes of the same beat repeating over and over, but it's something that I can play along with that's going to keep me in time. Whether it's a guitar part or vocal, bass, or keyboard, it will make your life a lot easier later if you do this. I totally understand as a musician, sometimes it's not the easiest thing to do to follow a very rigid drum beat while you're playing your parts. You may have written a song that speeds up and slows down and has more of a feel to the tempo, and that's okay. You do not have to do this process, but there's a downside. The downside would be after you're done with the recording and you're trying to line up the guitars and the vocals and the bass and get them more accurate, or edit, like grab the chorus and repeat it later in the song using cut and paste, it's going to be very hard to figure out where that starts and where it ends. And it might not line up after you do a cut and a paste. So for editing reasons, my preference is always to try to do this. And if I have a song that will change tempos, well, I can go in and edit tempo changes that maybe increase the speed ever so slightly when it goes into a chorus, and then kind of come back down to the normal tempo when it goes into a verse. How you do that varies from software to software, but I will always follow some kind of a beat while I'm recording. And for my clients, I pretty much demand that they do that. And as always, I'll put a link at the bottom of this video that'll show you something that's a little bit more advanced if you want to take a deeper dive. We do have a channel that does a lot of advanced recording and advanced mixing, so I'll put a related video below this one. Click on that. It'll take you to a different channel, but that's where you'll find the real deep analysis with a lot more cool tips. Don't forget to come join us on our Facebook group, Recording Tips. We got a lot of work to do. Let's get to it.